A lot of us carry memories of the flying monkeys from the film The Wizard of Oz. Reverend Wendy's talk this week is called When Flying Monkeys Swoop In. Based on the book The Wizard of Oz by Jean Houston, this week's talk looks at the various parts of the story from the perspective of our personal empowerment, remembering that all of the characters in the story represent us as we actively co-create the adventure of our lives.
If you've not been with us for a few weeks, we have been exploring together the great life lessons in the delightful story of The Wizard of Oz. I've encouraged you to pick up a copy of Jean Houston's book so you could actually go deeper into some of the process experiences that she presents. We've been using some of her book as a basis for this lesson, or for this series. So today I want to talk to you. I've entitled the lesson, When Flying Monkeys Swoop In. How many of you remember the scene in the movie of the Flying Monkeys? Can you remember when you saw it as a child? It was scary. I remember watching that when I was little and just really being afraid of the darkness and the strangeness of these flying monkeys swooping in, and they certainly weren't swooping in to do anything good. They were part of the plot to stop Dorothy and her friends from getting to the wizard and getting all of the things that they were looking for accomplished and met. When flying monkeys swoop in. Well, there are 5 ideas that I want to pull from the part of the movie that we're going to explore a little bit together this morning. So remember, we have Dorothy and her traveling companions. Her traveling companions are the Scarecrow, who's looking for a brain, and the Tin Man, who's looking for a heart, and the Cowardly Lion, who's looking for courage. And of course, Dorothy is wanting to do what? She wants to go home. She wants to go home. And they've been journeying down this path called the Yellow Brick Road, right? And for most of the movie, pretty much up until this point in time, the path is a pretty clearly defined path. They can see it very, very clearly, but that begins to change toward this part of the movie. So let me refresh you the story in your mind of the part that we're going to be taking a look at today. So we have Dorothy and her friends who have successfully wandered the Yellow Brick Road, made it through the field of poppies that was intended to completely stop them, and all it did was postpone them for a little while. But eventually, because of some rain that fell, the magical spell of the poppies that had put them to sleep, they awakened and they continued onto their journey, and they wind up at the land of Oz with the wizard, and they are ready for their requests to be fulfilled. And what happens? Does their request get fulfilled the first time that they get to the wizard? No, it doesn't get fulfilled the first time. And in fact, the wizard gives them a pretty difficult to accomplish task. Do you remember what the task is? Right, they are to go and get the broomstick of the Wicked Witch of the West. And they basically know that the only way they're going to get this broomstick is if the Wicked Witch of the West is no more. So this is a big, big challenge for them, right? And so then they leave probably angry, discouraged, and upset, knowing that now they have to go do this ultimate test. It wasn't enough just to get to the wizard. Now they've got to go get the broomstick of the Wicked Witch of the West. And it is on this journey, or this part of their journey, where the path is not so clearly defined anymore. Can you relate to that at all? In your own life, your own journey, sometimes your path seems very clear and very defined, and at other times maybe not so much so. And oftentimes it's at those points in our journey that the flying monkeys swoop in. And so we have that happening. We have the flying monkeys attacking the scarecrow, pulling out some of the scarecrow's straw. We have the flying monkeys carrying Dorothy and Toto off and plopping them in the witch's castle. We have the witch trying to take the ruby slippers off of Dorothy's feet. And Dorothy is actually willing at this point to part with the ruby slippers, but what happens when the witch tries to take them off? Do you remember? They're firmly affixed to Dorothy's feet, and in fact, when she tries to touch them, sparks fly out. And the witch is none too happy about that, and all of a sudden, Toto leaves because Toto's going to try to go get help from Dorothy's friends, and the witch is gone, and Dorothy is left in the castle all by herself. So we're going to explore some of those parts of the story. And there are 5 things, as I've said, that I think are just really significant for us to keep in mind, because this is our story. This is our story. All the different characters, all the different elements point to something in us in our journey of unfolding. Whether we are trying to get to or to accomplish a physical something in our life, or acquire a physical something in our life, or get to a certain state of spiritual awareness or maturity, we are making a journey. And there are certain things that seem to always happen when we're making this kind of journey. The broomstick. It's a test, is it not? The wizard says to them, you gotta go get me the broomstick of the wicked witch of the West. He's giving them an ultimate test. Have you ever felt like life is giving you an ultimate test? Yeah, your laughter tells me that you know exactly what I'm talking about here. What for you in your life right now is that broomstick? What does it feel like life has said to you, this is the broomstick, this is your ultimate test, prove me. Prove. That's what the wizard is saying. Prove yourself. Prove yourself. So where are you being challenged ultimately in your life right now to prove that you are something more to yourself than you've ever believed you were before? That's what our potential is all about. Our potential is about tapping into an aspect of ourselves, a dimension of ourselves, a capacity within ourselves that we've not yet experienced before. And boy, does it feel like being charged with finding that broomstick. We need to prove our worth, if you will, not so much to somebody else as to ourselves. So what is your broomstick? Where are you really being tested? Second is the piece of the flying monkeys and how they seem, or in the movie, they come in at a point in time where the path is no longer very clear. What are the flying monkeys? What do they represent in our lives? What do you think? Fear? Thoughts of mind? Any certain kinds of thoughts of mind? Yes, what kinds of thoughts of mind? Not very positive ones, right? How about, so we have fear, we have certain negative thoughts of mind, right? How about naysayers? Any of you have any naysayers in your life? You just have learned finally, don't go bring your greatest, dearest, sweetest dream, your hope, your possibility to them unless you want it shot to pieces, right? The naysayers are like the flying monkeys that come in, and boy, when they do, it can seem like the path is completely invisible at that point. How about something maybe even a little closer to home for some of us? How about those feelings and thoughts of self-doubt? Right? That just come in. Haven't you had the experience when you start on a journey toward a particular goal that's important to you? I imagine that you start I know I do, with a lot of enthusiasm, and it seems like the path is pretty clear, and I make some progress, and there are times that it feels like I'm skipping down that yellow brick road. Nod your head if you know what I'm talking about, right? And then there's a time that all of a sudden, oh, this is getting longer. It's taking longer than I thought it was going to. I'm getting a little tired. I'm getting a little distracted. That's the field of poppies that we talked about last week, right? Kind of falling asleep, and then you, okay, wait a minute, wake up. That's right. I see the Emerald City. I see what it is that was really important to me. We wake up, we're invigorated, we get to the Emerald City. We think that we're right at the not at the edge, we're right there, and then we're told, nope, one more piece, go get the broom. One more piece, and then the path is no longer as clear as it once was. But the interesting thing is, the desire is still there. The urging is still there. That which we set out to become, that which we set out to find, that which we set out to experience, that which we set out to accomplish, is still there, right? When there is something that is burning within your heart and your soul, fields of poppies will not ultimately stop you, nor will being told, you got one more big thing you got to do, go get me the broomstick, go over that hurdle, nor will the fact that suddenly the path doesn't seem as clearly defined as it once was. Still inside you will be that desire. The very word desire means of the Father. Emily Cady, in her book Lessons in Truth was considered to be one of Unity's, I think it still is, one of Unity's basic textbooks. In Lessons in Truth, Emily Cady writes about the idea that desire is of the Father, meaning Spirit, meaning God, as if God is tapping at your heart, saying, this is for you. This is for you. So even flying monkeys swooping in, the naysayers, the negative thoughts, the self-doubt that some of us experience quite a lot of, is not enough to get rid of that desire, because the desire is of the Spirit within you. We are meant to be on that path. We are meant to have that desire fulfilled. Third key part of the story is Dorothy being locked up and all alone, right? Toto is left to go find Dorothy's traveling companions, in other words, to get help for Dorothy, and Dorothy is left all alone with the hourglass, the sand dripping down. And in a crystal ball, she sees Auntie Em and can hear Auntie Em, and Auntie Em is calling for Dorothy. And Dorothy is trying to communicate back to Auntie Em, but of course, Auntie Em can't hear her, right? She's locked up all by herself. She's trying to reach back to her past. She's trying to get back there. But is that what our spiritual journey and our path of becoming is all about? Hint, the answer is no. That's not what it's about. That's not to say we discount the journey that's brought us to this point in time. We don't discount it, but we realize that the answer isn't going to be found there. Letting go, when we are willing to let go of the past, this is a fundamental, basic New Thought concept. When we let go of the past, we create space for something new to come forward. That's our hero's journey. Creating space for something new to come forward. So she's locked up all by herself, and she's afraid. Have you ever been in that place that Dorothy was at? We call it spiritually. What do we call it spiritually? The dark night of the soul. The dark night of the soul. In those few times in my life, and I'm grateful that there have only been a few, that I can honestly say I've been in a dark night of the soul, there was one thing that would help me deal with it. I don't know how this is for you, but I know when things are really, really, really tough for me, I need something really, really clear and really, really simple to hold on. Can anybody else relate to that? Something really clear, something really simple to hold on, a spiritual something that will help me be where I am until I create a consciousness that allows me to be where I want to be. And it is a verse from Scripture, and it is a simple verse that says, "This too shall pass. This too shall pass." Say that with me. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. Is that statement true? Convince me. Is it true? It is true. It's true with a capital T. It's ultimate truth. Why? It is because it's based on the impermanence of everything. Of everything. Now, that gives us great comfort when we're in a dark night of a soul, right? When we remember this too shall pass, that can give us the faith and the courage and the strength, the inner metal, if you will, to be able to get to the other side of it. This too will pass. It will not always be the way it is right now. It will not always be the way it is right now. But it is also true of those experiences in our lives that we love and we cherish. Those too will pass as well. We are meant as spiritual beings to learn how to move through our life holding things very gently and realizing the impermanence of it all. So she's locked up alone in the castle. She realizes at one point she can't reach back to Auntie Em, that she's there on her own. And then we have Toto and the gang that finally make it back. And we have the witch who's not too happy that they've all made it back, because the witch is determined to get what? Those ruby slippers, and she doesn't care how she gets them. And they're all in the same room, and the scarecrow decides that he's going to try to do the witch in by cutting down the chandelier. And then there is the fire that the witch gets hold of a torch, tries to light the scarecrow on fire. Remember that? And what does Dorothy do when she sees that? She grabs a bucket of water to put the fire out on the scarecrow, and what also happens to the water? And what happens to the witch? You can't say it that way. How does she say it? Okay, all together now. 1, 2, 3. I'm melting. I bet you have never in your life been to a church where that was the affirmation. And you probably won't again, right? I'm melting, I'm melting. I mean, that in itself is a beautiful metaphor as well, right? Of the impermanence of things, of the idea of water and fluidity and flow, that all of that energy of anger or that energy of darkness or that energy of negativity can just be diminished, can just be washed away. And of course, when the witch is no more, now Dorothy and friends can grab the broomstick and go back to the wizard, and they certainly do. They go back to the wizard excited and happy because they're finally going to get their brain, their heart, their courage, and their way home. And at this point, when they come back and they present the broom to the Wizard of Oz, we encounter a very different Dorothy, and we do because the wizard backpedals once again. He backpedals once again. And where Dorothy was once weak, now she stands in a certain personal power and strength. And she says to the wizard, if you were really great and powerful, you'd keep your promises. If you were really great and powerful, you'd keep your promises. And then we find Toto dashes towards the curtain and pulls back the curtain to reveal a very ordinary man pulling at these levers rather crazily. And when he discovers that he's been discovered, he says, pay no attention to the man behind that curtain. And then his voice begins to quiver, and it's like he doesn't believe it anymore either, right? He doesn't believe it anymore either. And Dorothy says, "You're not a very good wizard." And one of my favorite lines in the movie is this one. The wizard says, "I'm not a bad man. I'm just a very bad wizard." I'm not a bad man. I'm just a very bad wizard. Oh my gosh, is this whole piece of the story important and symbolic of us in our journey? The whole idea of pulling back the curtain, to dropping the pretenses, to being our true, authentic selves, is a significant part of growing and maturing as spiritual beings. To pull back that veil, to allow ourselves to be seen for who we really are. If we are a wizard, then let's be the very best wizard we can be. But if we're not a wizard, let's stop pretending that we are. It is an invitation and at the same time, I think, a command to step into our true authenticity. It's a call to be that authentic self. It's a call to drop the messages that some of us may have grown up with that said we needed to be somebody other than who and what we really are in order to be loved or liked or fit in or to make it or whatever it may be. For all the things that I see in our world today that concern me, and I know they concern you as well, there are things in our world today that I'm deeply grateful for. I am grateful that my gay and lesbian and transgendered friends can be who they are, that they do not have to be locked in a closet anymore and pretend to fit into a particular stereotype. I pray for the day when we will see that happen racially. That's one that pains me personally very, 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 very much. To be our authentic selves, the race that we are, and proud of it, and make our contribution out of that. Our sexual orientation, to be proud of that, and to make our contribution out of that. And whatever other labels or ways we differentiate each other, to appreciate them and to create a society together, starting right where we are, where we genuinely encourage people to be their authentic selves. Sidebar here, to be our authentic selves does not give us permission to be jerks. Okay, we're not talking about stopping our own personal growth and evolution. We all have work to do there. Would you not agree, every single one of us? Would you agree that we do not need to take our neighbor's inventory? If we're honest with ourselves, we have enough stuff to clean up inside ourselves that I don't need to try to fix you, right? But as we do that, as we do the work that is ours to do, and as we pull back the veil and let ourselves be seen without being embarrassed or ashamed and bring our authentic selves forward, we will help to create a world where that becomes the norm and not the exception. In closing, the message this morning is with a fifth piece, and it is the piece in the story that sometimes I found myself getting angry at Glinda. At the beautiful Witch of the North. So the wizard is able to give the Scarecrow and the Tin Man and the Cowardly Lion all the things that they long for. And Dorothy wonders if there's anything in the wizard's black bag that will help her to get home. And the wizard says, I will take you there myself, and we have Dorothy and Toto getting in the balloon. And as the balloon is getting ready to go up and the ties are released, we have Toto jumping out of the balloon, right? Boy, Toto. Bad time to go see a cat and decide you want to go chase it. And Dorothy gets out of the balloon to go rescue Toto, and the balloon goes higher and higher and higher. And the wizard doesn't know how to control it. And so she's stuck, and she's so distraught. And in that moment, we see that beautiful light, another symbol, and we see Glinda coming down. And Glinda tells her, "You've always had your way home. It's in the ruby slippers. Click your feet 3 times and say, 'There's no place like home. There's no place like home.'" And she gets there. But why did Glinda not tell her that sooner? We wouldn't have a great story, right? Why did Glinda not tell her sooner? Well, if you recall, the Scarecrow actually asked that question. You see, our elevated wisdom asks really good questions. And the Scarecrow wanted to know from Glinda, why didn't you tell her? If she always had the answer she was searching for, why didn't you tell her? Do you recall the answer? Some of you do. Her answer is important. Her answer is this: because she wouldn't have believed me. She had to learn it for herself. She wouldn't have believed me. She had to learn it for herself. Have you ever had somebody tell you something about yourself, about your capacity, your potential for greatness, and you heard it, but you couldn't own it, right? You had to discover it, what? For yourself. There's a certain growing into our greater selves that we must experience. There's a certain growing into our goals that we must experience. Let me close with a few words from Jean. And remember, Jean writes about this hero's journey from 2 very important levels. From the level of the hero's journey as it relates to the individual, that's you and me, and from the level of how a changed individual impacts society. She says, throughout the story, Dorothy, as a possible human, is seen as a building block of the possible society. The metaphor of this story applies to both the personal and societal aspects of our lives. Dorothy returns changed. She becomes mythic. She has undergone adventures that have helped her to discover the riches and uses of her own intelligence, the opening of the heart, friendship and compassion, and the courage that comes of taking risks and meeting all challenges. She has learned about the magic, the wizardry, the sacred potency that is contained within each of us. She not only accepts these deepened aspects of herself, but she appreciates them. Dorothy has returned home as a grander version of herself to regreen the wastelands of Kansas with her newfound knowings. Though she feels she can find everything she needs in her own backyard, the audience somehow knows that the backyard includes the vaster domains of her subconscious mind and quite possibly the collective unconscious of the human race and the planetary mind as well. She is ready and able to co-create a beautiful new world that works for all. Namaste.
Thanks for listening. The Unity Center, transforming lives and healing our world. Check us out Sundays at 9 and 11. Subscribe to our podcasts and download our free app for instant access to a wealth of spiritual teachings, services, and events.